one of our organizers of our Fisherpoets gathering down here in Astoria. I'm coming to you from Cannon Beach, Oregon here tonight. Jay is having a little trouble with his email connection. Who knows why? So we're going to swap places. I thought I'd start out maybe after all. I'm a set netter in Bristol Bay. I fished Kodiak and Southeast Alaska and stuff, but for a long, long time now, I've been set netting in Bristol Bay with my family. My kids were young once, now they're older. And but anyway, I got a song about that. I got this song here. And this is turned out to be a pretty prescient song because it's about waiting for the tide to change. Sometimes you go aground over there. And the whole world seems to be kind of aground right now. But the tide will change. It goes like this. Well, the bay was flat, the night was noir. They were doing about 30 when they hit the bar. Now they're waiting for the tide to change. Is she rising yet? He'd ask Bill where. He just looked, it's ebbing still. So they're waiting for the tide to change. Somewhere fish are going by. Somewhere nets are going dry. So they sit on the mud while the sun and the moon drag the water away. But it'll be back soon. Sometimes you gotta wait for the tide to change. You can push, you can pull for all you're worth, but that's why they call the planet Earth. Sometimes you're gonna wait for the tide to change. Somewhere though you're still hard aground. Out there somewhere the tide is turning round. You can drain the bilge, you can sit and think, you can curse your luck, but you're not gonna sink while you're waiting for the tide to change. Where they could have got angry, they could have got pissed, they might have lost sleep about the fish they missed while they was waiting for the tide to change. They could have taken a walk, but the mud was too deep, so they hunkered down and they got some sleep. They was waiting for the tide to change. And it did. It will. It'll change. And then I got one more for you before we move on. I got these boys working for me. I'm fortunate enough to have 4 sons and a daughter and a wife that all fish with me up there in Alaska. And I used to take care of them when they were little, but now they're doing that for me. So this is a song about what it's like nowadays as Dad's getting a little older. It goes like this. Come on, Dad, hand me that line. Come on, Dad. There we go, it's going. Here we go. Come on, Dad, hand me that line. Come on, Dad, you did just fine. Come on, Dad, just don't prop the net next time. Come on, Dad, now watch your step. One hand on the railing, that's it, yeah. Grab a helping hand, that ain't a crime. Are you sure you want to go this way? Because we went aground there yesterday. There's a channel just beyond that bar. see that net that's up ahead. That's not our net, our buoy's red. Idle down, Dad, let's see where we are. Now take these breakers nice and slow. Why don't you drive like you do when you're down below? Hand me the bucket, we'll bail, you drive. You got a line in the water on your starboard rail. I'm on it, Dad, you drive, we'll bail. Just keep this boat afloat, keep us alive. Okay, boys, let's rise and shine. Where'd Dad leave that hanging twine? Dad, those aren't yours, those gloves are mine. You don't spot many jumpers, don't see that well. About blind in the dark as far as we can tell. But he signs and checks and he still picks fish like hell. Sometimes he likes to sit a spell, enjoy a mug of Zinfandel. He'll study all the stats, then play a hunch. Fish the bay southeast of Kodiak, and he still ain't had a heart attack. Still drinks strong coffee black, still packs a punch. Don't touch a net, that stacks just fine. You can't do the corks next time. Watch your feet, Dad, standing on the anchor line. That's it. That's my crew. That's my song for my boys and my girl.
Woohoo! Thank you.
Boy, thanks very much. Now,
Lovely, lovely.
if I understand who's next, we might have dialed in. I'm taking Jay's place on my lineup that I sent people earlier because he's having a little technical difficulties, you might well expect. But John Campbell's meeting us, joining us tonight late in Rhode Island. Point Judith or thereabouts. He's a member of Rhode Island's Music Hall of Fame, New England's fishing culture ambassador to the Pacific. And we're glad you could join us tonight, John.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I don't know. Is anybody hearing me or anything?
Yeah, you sound beautiful.
Well, that's kind of you, but inaccurate. So I think I'll just tear into a song. This one's about the style of fishing boat that was popular around here till about the middle 1970s, when the steel stern trawlers began to get popular. But prior to that, a lot of the bigger fishing boats were a style of boat called an eastern rig. And it was an old style of fishing. You'd set the net over the side, bring it in over the side. And they were all wooden boats. This song is sort of how they kind of all had a look about them. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that they were built in Maine, and the guys in Maine only knew how to build schooners. So the fishing boats they built right up to the late 40s and 50s all kind of just looked like schooners with a motor stuck in them. They used to haul home up the wind, carrying dories and the oars. And they sailed out from the port of Gloucester, converted to the nets and doors. And they cut the mast a few years back, leaving just these two short twigs. But you'll always know her by her lines, the last of the eastern rigs. Boats of steel, now it seems to me, don't offer very much. And it seems to me that a welded hull is always cold to touch. You know, I never liked all those painted ladies with all their fireworks. And who could trust the vessel or in the midst of sparks? So I don't care if they'll lend me the money, 'cause he ain't banker, he never was the captain's friend. And this old boat she's running, smooth as honey in his dollars on the southwest wind. The wake she bubbles up like coffee as we're setting out the gear. And if there is a God in heaven, she might float another year. She must have done 10,000 trips without a word of thanks. But now there's nothing but the coat of paint holding in the planks. But this old diesel's got a few more turns to lit up and close the pin. You know, we finally just took out the racks, so at night we come back in to the insurance. They want too much money. And that agent, he never was the captain's friend. And this old boat, she's running smooth as honey. You know, there's dollars on the southwest wind. The net is spread out like a blanket, 100 yards astern. You know, one day she'll go steaming out, never to return. They used to haul home up the wind. Twig, but you'll always know her by her lines. The last of the eastern rigs. So anyway, we'll send that one out to Bill Harrington. Bill Harrington's got an old eastern rig up in Kodiak called the Kilkenny. He was built in 1948 and fished a long time out of New Bedford. Ended up in New Zealand for a while, and then there it sits up in Kodiak. And so Bill's a character. A friend of mine, his son, Sean Houlihan, said that was always his favorite songs. He thought it, one of his favorite songs, he thought it was Last of the Easter Eggs. But be that as it may. Anyway, I'm going to do a poem since this is a poet event. And as I said, I'm from Rhode Island. And to be from Rhode Island is to have a little bit of a, I don't know what you'd call it. We feel inadequate in a lot of ways. I mean, I don't know how many Rhode Islands fit in Alaska, but it's a depressing number. I know you could probably fit 2 or 3 Rhode Islands just on Kodiak alone. Although why people in Kodiak would want 2 or 3 Rhode Islands is beyond me. But in our own defense, we do say that Rhode Island is 3% bigger at low tide. And undoubtedly, there's a lot of contributions that Rhode Islanders have made to our great American culture. I just can't think of any right now. So I'm going to do a poem about one contribution that came out of Rhode Island during the Second World War. Developed and manufactured here and sent all over the world, and that's the Quonset hut. You know, it seems to me that your trailer homes, they mostly draw tornadoes, and your little shack down on the beach, well, it could float off in a hurricane. So keep that palm tree hut down in Sanibel, your igloo up in Nome, because I'm looking at a Quonset hut. Now there's a real well-rounded home. You know, you might not have an inkling at the onset, but you can make yourself a real good life in a plain old Quonset hut. No, I don't need some fancy spread from some architect's exotica. I just want the kind of place you can put up in Antarctica. And if it seems sometimes that the pace of life has gotten pretty hectic and you haven't been real comfortable since Dylan went electric, and if a cabin up in those piney woods just gives you thorough heebie-jeebies, well, you might need the kind of place that you can get surplus from the Seabees. You know, they build so flimsy anymore that your house could almost fold up. Well, you're better off with the kind of place that the weather can't get hold of. So look around for a real short wife so the kids don't get too tall. And don't be surprised if all the pictures just kind of hang out from the wall. Now, you might not have an inkling at the onset, but you can't hear diddly when it rains down in a Quonset hut. And I know you think this piece of work is mostly nonsense, but you'll be galvanized when next you see the lovely Quonset hut. So thanks, that's my bit, and I guess back to John Broderick.
Woohoo! That was awesome!
Thanks, John. Thanks for joining us.
Way to go!
Woohoo!
It's great to hear from you tonight from Rhode Island. As a treasure, that little state. I'm appreciating my visits back there before, and you're a treasure in Rhode Island itself. Thanks for going to the trouble to join us here tonight, John. Megan Gervais is going to join us. She's Homer's Own. She's a gill netter, Bristol Bay gill netter from there, and Ruby's going to help her, and we're looking forward to hearing from Megan and Ruby tonight.
All right, we're just trying to tone it down after our little fit of laughter over that Quonset hut poem that was pretty hard to beat. But I've got Ruby here with me, who's going to read a poem after me. We fish in Bristol Bay. Ruby's been fishing with me on and off since she was 3 weeks old. She spent the whole summer out there. You stick your head up here. It's cool. It's all people you know. It's Maggie, Katie. It's all our buddies. They're our people. These are our people. Okay. You can put your head down while I read. Okay, I'll read first, and Ruby's going next. This is called It'll Fish. I wrote it last year about this time. We drifted the net over a snag off Airport Beach, made a bus-size hole in the net. We can fix it. Stretch it over the back deck. Corks hooked over the port cleat. Lead line looped over the horns. All hands help. Hold this, match the ragged edges, trim the flap, then lace it up. Throw in a few hitches. Won't be perfect, but good enough, it'll fish. Often the fix is easy, just a loose electrical connection or fuel. Change the raycore and the engine roars back to life. For the leaky hydraulic hose, we have a spare. Look under the port side bunk, under the impellers, hose scraps, fuel filters, gaskets, and the bucket of brass fittings. For the toughest bolt to break free, try 2 drops of penetrating oil and the biggest wrench, plus a cheater bar and a couple of taps with a mallet. Put the heat to it. Work smarter, not harder. Add a few choice words and some blood from your knuckles. For non-moving parts, don't underestimate the value of marine adhesive, well chosen and properly applied. To make it as good as new, no, it's better than new, it's custom and it'll fish. It is perhaps 10 times more work to fix anything on anchor than in the yard, and 50 times harder to fix it when it's blowing west 25 and the bilge 8 3/8 wrench, and you're days away from parts, and you haven't slept more than 2 and 24 for who knows how long. But some repairs cannot be anticipated. The components are concealed within their dark steel housings. And even if we ply them with the proper lubricant at regular intervals, they occasionally give up at inconvenient moments. Like the shorn spline shaft that on the hydraulic pump that quit mid-set during the peak of the run while we were drifting towards the breakers with a heavy net. That was an expensive one, not just in parts, but missed fishing. Some fixes require 8 hours on the phone, standing in the rigging, in the wind howling to get the cell phone signal that keeps dropping while troubleshooting with the mechanic and ordering parts, while the sorry eyes of deckhands scan the tender lines to see what we aren't delivering. The next plane is when? Boots and jackets are patched and mended for a time, but gear that is beyond hope retires into the depths of the Connex, the trove of worn serpentine belts, popped buoys, the leaky washdown hoses. We have what you need in there to fix it. The trick is finding what you need when you need it. Some things are beyond repair. Electronics eaten by salt water, that black pipe fitting on the bronze washdown pump just crumbled in my hand. But I did learn a lesson about galvanic corrosion and dissimilar metals. I won't repeat the mistake. I am held together by splash zone, zip ties, stainless fasteners, black tape, hose clamps, 4,200, the spare scrap of busted buoy, and hanging twine hitched back upon itself over and over for strength. Not the prettiest fix, but every repair tells the story of itself. A knot correctly tied can fix many things, and can, for a time, even hold together the broken parts of broken hearts. But the better fix takes a little more doing. Untie the lines and point the boat to sea. Withhold sleep. Apply wind, sky, salt, and northern latitudes. Top off with hydraulic oil and diesel fuel, and bring on the salmon. Won't ever be like new, but it'll fish. That's the end of that one. And Ruby is... Hey, this is a poem that Ruby and I wrote together with a little help from the little sister, Mazzy. There was lots of collaboration on this one. Okay, sit up and stick your face right there. You got it. That's great. Say it loud. Say it loud and strong and slow. Ready? You got it. Your face in there. There you go. Boat kids. You got it. So good. You can do it. You've done way scarier things. This kid hangs out on my boat in Bristol Bay and crosses the bar and doesn't even throw up that often. So she can sit in front of you and read a poem. It's not a big deal. Want to do it together? We'll read it together. Want me to help you get started? Okay. I'll do it with you. Okay. Boat kids.
Out on deck, every set, they're ready. Heads on, gloves on, boots on, working steady. Picking fish, getting splashed, and it's blowing west 20. They don't care 'cause they want their money. Hold the flashlight, run for tools, run the hydro sometimes. Tie it up, let it go. Yee-haw, grab the line. Watch a 9-year-old
outwork grown men. They'll show you how it's done.
And be in bed by 10. One kid on corks and one on leads. They'll make it look easy.
'Cause it is, they said.
Sriracha on their carrots, Legos out, work done. Swimming every day at sunset, having fun.
Good job, Ruby. Sometimes just getting started is the hardest part. That was it. All right.
Hey, Ruby.
All right. Thanks for having us here at Fisherpoets. There's Massey.
Well, Megan and Ruby, that was delightful. Gee, thanks for doing that. What a couple of veterans you guys are. Thanks for joining us tonight. Well, Steve Schoonmaker is a fisher poet from a long time back. He's been coming down to Astoria to visit us clear from Kasilof every year for a long time. And it's nice to see him here tonight with us. He's a Cordova gillnetter right now. And I see you there, Steve. Welcome.
I see you there too. Thank you. This is rather strange though, this Zoom deal. But yeah, we're carrying on. I don't really know what to do this time, so I sent in a video, which you'll get to see. I do have a few things to say, I guess, in the short time I have to accompany that. I'm really glad that we're still doing it. I sure miss the party though. But it reminds me of, this summer reminds me of thinking about poetry and stories and words, you know, root words, like the root word for fish poetry, or fisheries, or fisherman, root words like fish. You know, the fish don't owe me a living, but I sure owe them a living. And it's gotten me kind of unsure of the future a little bit, but I just want to say I'm very grateful for this culture that we have, and I hope you enjoyed the video that I sent in. Good to see you, sorta.
Well, I got a poem that I wrote a number of years ago in the cycles of fishing seasons, you know. It was on one of these, the down part, you know. But it's tough, like it does with seasonal things like fishing, you know. Almost 40 years now since I started fishing. Most of those years gill netting. This one I wrote probably 15 years ago. It's called Stay. And, you know, it wasn't just me. We were having trouble with prices and runs, and, you know, it was down. But it's kind of come back up over a few years, and the last decade or so, the water's really warming in the ocean. And even in the streams, salmon are having a harder time surviving. And we're getting more muscular with our boats and our fisheries, and it's declining. This last summer was really a show of that, you know, the poor fish returns. I suspect ocean conditions. Here comes poem revised, called Stay. Closes a sky of pink and gray blue. Glitters of frost that last week was due. Showered in leaves as the breezes come through. So ends the summer. What's grown is what grew. My boat's on a trailer, my net's in a bag. Made her back safely, but not much to brag. I've seen better summers, and I'm not sure I've seen worse. I'm still kind of a winner, it's just there's no purse. Oh, I picked out a few fish, and I made some nice sets. Not much to take home or pay up the debts. Yeah, people see trouble with fishing today, and talking with me, they ask why I stay. We call it our lifestyle. That's why we stay. That's why we borrow and hope we can pay. Yeah, it's gotten a lot tougher, but then so have I. With lower expectations, I try to live on this pie. You know, and there's still nothing like it. It's my hand on the wheel. I'm not leashed by a boss. I don't have to heel. I'm out in the scenes on some beautiful bay. Yeah, I'm paid for my troubles in more than one way. Go think like a salmon, and then try to go back to thinking like a goldfish. You know where I'm at. Maybe I'll stay broke. What can I say? Or maybe I'm broken. Should I go or should I stay? 2020. Thank you, Fisherpoets.
Yeah, Steve, thanks for bringing that on. That's terrific. Yeah, I love that poem, and I like the update, even though it's tough. It's great to hear you and great to see you out there on it must be Catchmack Bay there someplace, huh? So thanks for bringing that to us. We'll hope we see you again soon. Thanks for joining us.
Yoo-hoo!
Well, next up, I believe, we got John Van Amerongen, who was really one of the real inspirations for the original Fisherpoets gathering, because he was editor of the Alaska Fisherman's Journal years ago, which among all the news that the journal would report, he would also include poetry by fishermen and women, of course. So he gave us the first 40 leads that led to the Fisherpoets gathering. He's kind of the voice of the Fisherpoets, the musical voice. Yeah. Thanks for bringing some of your songs. It's been some time since we heard from you, John. We're really glad you're here tonight. From Vashon Island, Washington.
Yeah, thank you, John. I just got a picture to show you all here. That's me. That's the last king salmon in Puget Sound, according to what I read in the paper, but I don't think so. That's COVID salmon. I was 110 feet away from him when I hooked him. So we're both safe. You know, we all start out on some boat. This boat here over my shoulder is the boat I started out on, the Estella. It was built in 1936, about 12 years before I was built. And it was my first ride up to Alaska. And I spent probably, I don't know, 40 years or so in the business, 35 years in Ballard and gone back forth to Alaska and playing music with Bill Harrington. And I know that John Campbell knows him and remembers him, and so do I. Quite a guy. So we all start somewhere, and mostly it says a greenhorn. So this is a song about a greenhorn on a boat, a purse seiner. Looked a little better than that one, called the Corva May. It's called The Kid on the Corva May. You got to break in everywhere, whether it's in the restaurant or in a truck, on a bulldozer, working on a fire line, anywhere, in an office. You're the new guy, you're the kid. I don't care how old you are, you're the kid. You got to prove yourself. Now when he hopped off the ferry in Ketchikan, he was fresh as a little pup. Waltzed on into the sourdough. Us boys at the bar looked up. Well, here's a kid from Ballard. He'd come a long, long way to fill his wish and kill some fish on the deck of the Corva May. Now his cheeks were pale and shaven, his long hair blonde and straight. He didn't smoke or chew no snooze at all. He didn't talk much while we ate. He didn't cuss or fart. He couldn't read a chart, a real greenhorn, you could say. But his back had muscle, so I guessed he could hustle a job on the Corva May. Are you staring at me? He looked up and said as he put down his knife and fork. Well, I was nursing a mac and water. I was wondering if this dork could pull his weight after staying up late when we met at the break of day to lace up the seine in the pounding rain on the dock by the Corva May. Now, pardon me, pal, but you look like a gal the way all that hair's a-waving. And that shirt's mighty fancy, but wherein it's chancy the way my cook's been behaving. Well, he ain't been laid in 53 days since his wife up and ran away. So you better be hoping you don't drop the soap in the shower on the Corva May. I took him on down to the Tongass, fixed him up real good. Bought him a pair of Frisco jeans, a set of oilskins with a hood to keep them jellyfish out of his neck, piling web and quirks all day when the big ones dropped from the power block to the deck of the Corva May. And we gave him the bunk in the engine room with his head right next to the jimmy. And when he sat at the galley table, all them coffee cups would shimmy. Till his third piece of bacon when he finally quit shaking and the trembling went away. But he never did whine, he was doing just fine, that kid on the Corva May. See, we ain't really mean, it's just that we've seen a lot of them come and go. And if you ain't got grit, you ain't worth a whit to yourself or your boat in a blow. 'Cause even the best are put to the test when they can't see the bow through the spray. So we did what we did for ourselves and the kid on the deck of the Corva May. And when we pulled into town, he bought us around, quickly paid for another, lifted his glass and said, "You're an ass, but I'm starting to feel like your brother." Well, it's a real no-brainer, this being a saner, but I think I'll stay on anyway. You guys are moronic. Yeah, mine's gin and tonic. Here's to the core of a May.
Mhm.
You're muted, John.
I guess I said thank you very much too soon, and they started shuffling me off to Buffalo or maybe Rhode Island. But this is a song actually I wrote for an event, tried to see if it was opening a fish processing plant in Carrollton, Georgia. And I was assigned the task, well, kind of, I assigned myself the task of writing a song about something that connected Carrollton, Georgia with Alaska. And I thought, well, wow. And when I went out there, I saw all these pine trees, and they kind of reminded me of all the cedar trees in Alaska. And met some people in the plant, watched them work just as hard as anybody in Alaska. And I thought, well, I'll write a song about a gal from Alaska. Well, no, a gal from Georgia who gets a job. She's a greenhorn too. She gets a job in a fish plant in Wrangell. And this is the song that develops, and it's a true story. These are all true stories. They're just not about me or necessarily about any specific person at any particular time on any particular boat, but this is kind of how life goes in Alaska. She left her home in Carrollton, Georgia, fresh out of school, looking fine. She carried the love of her home and her family, but she needed some space and a little time. She'd read of a place they called Alaska, where the mountains crown the ocean shore, where the days are long and cool in the summer, where the salmon jump and the eagles soar. Way up north in Alaska, she might be gone for a long, long time, but she carried the love of her home and her family. And her hair smelled sweet like Georgia pine. So she packed her bag, threw her jeans in a suitcase, boarded a plane for the very first time, got a kiss and a prayer from her mama and daddy, waved goodbye to the Georgia pines. She found her a job in a place called Wrangell. Long hours in the fish plant, working night and day. But the hills grew thick with Alaska cedar, like the Georgia pines, so far away. Way up north to Alaska, she'd be gone for a long, long time, but she carried the prayers of her love and family. And her hair smelled sweet like Georgia pine. Then a boat pulled up, and a kid named Jimmy hopped down to the dock, and he caught her eye. His shoulders were broad from hauling them nets in, and his eyes are blue as the Georgia sky. they took a walk on the beach that evening. The smell of the cedars filled the air, but cheek to cheek as they danced in the moonlight. He could smell the pines in her golden hair. She took him home to Carrollton, Georgia. They lived their winters, they did just fine, in a cabin they built for their own little family. Of Alaska cedar and Georgia pine, of Alaska cedar and Georgia pine. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Gee, it's a delight to hear you again. It's been too long since you've been with us at the Fisherpoets Gathering, and it's just one of the benefits of these peculiar times that we're able to hear you with us tonight. Lovely songs. And remind us how much we miss you. Nice job. Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight. And Rich King now is with us, clear from Kilauea, Hawaii, where he winters. He's a Prince William Sound fisherman, seiner, just back from a long season himself. Thanks for coming, Rich.
John.
Yeah.
Van Am always ends his shows with, there you go. That's, I know, John, that was a great song. Doggone. Okay, let's see here. I'm happy to report that after 4.5 months of Alaska and Hawaii protocols, I am out of quarantine tonight in 3 hours. It's been a long, weird season. That's all I can say. Fishing wasn't that good, but in some ways, Prince William Sound was the best it's ever been this season. It was good. We did okay, caught some fish, found some new places, saw some cool stuff. So, but here I am back in this little office, and I'm spending all this time trying to figure out how to get past all the peculiar programs, PPP and EIDL. And anyway, so I wrote this poem a few days ago, a week ago, I guess, because I've been monkeying with this stuff forever, it seems like. At any rate, this is called Season's End 2020. If I can get it right. I'll just read it off this piece of paper. Season's end. Trying to pretend my time afloat I might extend. Not driving boat around the bend, but riding desk. I just hit send. I'm sitting at a keyboard now, trying to figure out just how to make my way through techno apps, speculating that perhaps outsourced my job. I've been replaced by changes in the human race. No longer is acceptable the concept of a net that's full, that brings the wonders of the sea to the plates of families. So here I am in modern times with techno forms that by the line are telling me just what I'm worth to the governments of earth. My time of doing as I please is whittled down by agencies. Because of bills that are due, cost of fishing, nothing new. From my top house to my hall, costs that might be eligible for PPP or EIDL. Alaska cares? Time will tell. Depending if correctly filed, my application's in a pile that made it in before deadline, snuck it in just in time. Before the loot got all used, aging fishermen are confused by setting nets on government dole and never using trolling poles. Potential harvest not earned by hand is like late run fish, can't be planned. So depending on bureaucracy, a sinking boat out on the sea. Okay. That I don't know what to say. Times are changing. Stevie has it right. It's a different world. Fishermen like me are clinging, of course. But I will say this. The seafood industry set the bar with regard to protocols this year, and I saw them do a better job than anybody else. And I'm talking about state and local governments, city governments. So I'm really happy to be a part of it, and I'm happy that I survived it all. So here we are. Okay, so since I'm touching on social issues, I thought I'd do a poem I wrote a while ago about fishing here on Kauai. It's called The Tax Collector. Okay, it was April 15th, the day we all dread, and I borrowed the money to pay tax to the feds. I was grumbling and growling from my spot on the couch, and my wife says, "Go fishing, you won't be such a grouch." Still, I whined and complained as I prepped gear for leaving. These taxes are killing me, I'll never get even. So I headed downwind, hoping tuna were feeding, knowing full well to get back was gonna be a real beating. I'll pay for it later, like everything. When the big rod went off and the line started to scream, I set the hook with the boat, forgetting my troubles, and the 9-0 went off. I was into a double. When the big rod stopped smoking, the work soon began. I was taking line back. I had him most of the way in, and another great pull, and suddenly slack, and I swore and I cussed as I pulled my line back. But to my surprise, there was still weight out there. When up from the deep, a head had appeared, but the body was gone from what once was a brute. I'd been hit by the man in the gray flannel suit. From astern, a great shark looks at me with a laugh and says, "Your taxes are due and I'm gonna get half." But remember, St. Peter gets the ultimate price. When you get to the gates, you look back on your life. Now for centuries, I've watched men treat my oceans quite rough, and the tax that you pay can't be enough to cover the damage you've done to my world. And with that, he was gone in a watery swirl. I was stunned and afraid when the second rod flexed. I went to the 9-0 thinking, what could be next? I landed the tuna. He was small, but he'd do to feed all my family and some friends too. And as I beat back uphill through wind, waves, and foam, I was shocked the shark's message had come so close to home. Well, my wife's heard my fish stories. She'd smile and nod, but she'd never believe I met a fish god. So I kept to myself, and from then on, I wouldn't dare to whine or complain about paying my share. And when searching my soul about how mankind's fell, I remember that paybacks can mean heaven or hell. There you go.
Thanks, Rich, for joining us. Always optimistic, always a sense of humor, always cheerful, even so. Thanks for being here again. I'm glad to hear from you. Say hi to Marsha for all of us.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. See you soon, I hope. So Mizzy Hermansen's next up. She's a set netter too, from Cook Inlet. She's been running a family outfit there for a long time. Mizzy was invited to read her Fisher poetry at the Library of Congress last year. And so she's been to DC on our behalf, and we're really proud of her. Thanks, Mizzy, for joining us. If you're here, come on in.
Yeah. Thanks, John. So I'm just gonna jump in. This one's called Ripple. Memories ripple as I gaze out over the inlet. I am small, sometime before grade school. Dad cut the tops off his heavy black hip boots just below the knee where they inevitably crack when folded down repeatedly. I find this discarded treasure, don the tops, walk around believing my boots are taller than their reality. I want to be a fisherman. Ripple. I wear the smallest pair of fishing gloves. Still, Mom had to cut the green denim-like material down to kid size and sew them back together. I learned to pick fish at the beach nets. I clutch salmon to my body as I carry them to the burlap-covered pile that awaits the cannery's delivery truck. I develop a closeness to the salmon, physically and emotionally. I am becoming a fisherman. Ripple. Maybe late grade school. I go out and Fred when the weather is good. The old wooden dory, named after its builder Frederickson, is painted white with red gunnels and hull, same as all the Hermansen brothers skiffs. Dubbed the Peppermint Fleet, these boats have proven mighty seaworthy over the years. Ripple. I am coming in for a landing. The Peppermint Fleet long retired. We now have aluminum skiffs. Uncle Herman stands on the beach next to Pauline. I gun it, then cut the throttle, lift the outboard, slide up the beach. Uncle leans over to Pauline and says, Alfred is looking down and smiling, I think. He knows Dad would be proud and worried. I am becoming a fisherman. Ripple. It's a stormy day. Sou'westers pound us on the flood, and today it is questionable whether we will be able to pull ourselves off the beach. We may have to wait for the ebb, but fish will be lost on the turn of the tide. My cousins elect to wait out the storm. We decide to give it a go. As I walk down towards the water's edge for the lunch, my cousin's crewman complains about skipping the tide. He points to me. There are chicks going out next door. I am becoming a fisherman. Ripple. The old timers are almost all gone. We are that next generation, yet I feel nowhere near an old timer. I think of the things they did without the technologies we have. Uncle used to tell stories of rowing across Cook Inlet. Said you had to catch the tide just right. And Dad and Uncle used to talk about Grandpa's first outboard, a 6.5 horsepower Alto they called the Knuckle Buster because of the nasty recoil. And yet our fishery is much the same. Our skiffs are lighter, our outboards faster, but the labor is still mostly physical. And I still feel a closeness to the salmon born all those years ago as I carried them clutched to my chest. I guess I am a fisherman. I'll do one more for you. This one is inspired by Robert McFarlane's book, Lost Words. He did poems based on, because people are kind of, kids are not outside, so they're losing the words. And I really hope that we don't lose our salmon culture and that we can keep things healthy here. So this is called Salmon Spell. Silver streaking ocean goer, life giver, stream returner, turn to spawner, release yourself into the river and die together on the riverbed. But the end is not that you are dead. You feed the birds, the mammals, me. You are drawn up by the tree and brought up are your progeny who turn to fry and smolt and then return to ocean once again. Thank you guys so much. Hopefully we can meet again in person soon. But thanks for the invite. Bye.
Way to go!
the name.
Thank you, Mizzy. Thanks for your so carefully considered poetry. And it's just great to hear you tonight. Thanks for coming. I can't wait till we see you here again. Well, I believe someplace out there we're waiting for Gino Leach, coming to you from Rob and Tiffany Seitz' place there in Astoria.
Okay.
Yeah, there, I hear him. Gino's been, he's worked on West Coast draggers, Gulf Coast dredgers. He's worked on the legendary Salvage Chief, forgotten herring skiffs.
Did the red line disappear through that mic?
Yeah.
And that sounds like he's working with Dave Densmore right beside him. Good thing we didn't wait any longer to have him on board, I think. How you guys doing?
Yeah, we're doing all right, I guess. I see this now. It's asking me a question. I just got to hit the X, I guess. Start my video?
Start a video, yeah.
Huh?
Yes, please.
You're on.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah. Jesus. God. Well, anyway.
We hear you, Gino. Oh, there you go.
Well, I'm enjoying everybody out there, you know. So this here is called Earl Cronin. It's not his little book, Waterlogged, I did. Yeah, this goes back a ways. I'm looking right out the window out here over the river. Earl Cronin. Worked with an unreal skipper on a tired old tender for a crippled old cannery back in '73. Best job I ever had. The skipper was Earl Cronin, a bandy-legged old Irishman from Wheeler who'd been known to pull a cork in his day. Some guys call him Earl the Squirrel or Captain Crunch. I called him Earl. I love that old bastard. Earl's attire was predictable as Astoria bridge span paint. He wore navy blue everything, including a plain Jane navy blue ball cap, the bill cocked straight up, due north. Hoistmen along the waterfront shied away from Earl as if he were a leaking gas can. When angered, a ruddy Irish complexion turned icebreaker red. A long white scar, the result of Earl flying through the windshield of a 52 Hudson, pulsating on his cheek like a fluorescent tube light. Black slab rail glasses showcased cutting torch blue eyes that could burn through base bolts, yet soften the dancing blue bonnets when reminiscing of his Oregon coast snake wake past. I sopped up Earl's stories like Skid Row gospel mission gravy. We began each morning the gillnet season tied off the Gurry sodden fender piles that swayed like Liberty sailors beneath the hoist at Union Fish. In dark steel shadows cast down by the Astoria Bridge, Earl and I deck loaded the cannery tender Vernon with fish boxes of crushed cake ice and fuel drums bound for upriver gillnetters. Well, after bellowing bon voyage curses at the hoistman for nicking our wheelhouse paint with a 4-stack of boxes, a winded, wheezing Earl Cronin said, "Cut her loose, kid," then calmly walked a 70-year-old boat away from a 70-year-old cannery with 70-year-old horse sense. We were upriver bound. I don't know. What do you think? One more? You want to hear what? Here's one about Densmore. You want to hear this?
Oh, Jesus.
Captain's chair. There's a story here. Densmore gave me a Rattle City, bought a captain's chair at the hospital auction on 16th Street. He needed a hand getting it home. Well, I met Dave on the 3rd floor of the red brick decommissioned hospital. He was stoked. At the end of a death row green-colored hallway, Dave flung open a door like a game show host. Dixie cups and mouse droppings littered a curled linoleum floor. Cockeyed, yellowed window shades conveyed impending doom and crash and burn pipe dreams. The captain's chair, a porcelain-based dinosaur, dominated the deserted room and looked cold and uncaring and sinister as Vladimir Putin. Speaking in tongues and drunk on 100, Dave verbalized his vision of converting the captain's chair to a captain's chair, yet failed to comprehend the nickel-plated legs, clamps, and stirrups protruding from the business end of the relic. And following a brief birds and the bees review with Dave, he blurted, "I don't care what the captain's chair was. I care what the captain's chair is now. She's going on a boat." Well, the captain's chair never became a captain's chair. Dave's house on Clatsop Street burned down a year or two after he moved to Kodiak. I'm sure the captain's chair stood tall amongst the ashes. Ike and Del Waterhouse probably cavemaned aboard their scrap truck and hauled it to Solly Solonsky's junkyard by the tracks. You never know what becomes of scrap. Razor blades, pogo sticks, super tankers, Chevys, Fords, or Dodges. Who knows? Maybe Dave's driving the captain's chair down the Alcan Highway right now. That's it for me, man.
Woo! Yeah.
You know.
All right. That's good enough for me. Nice to see everybody.
Gino, thanks. Thanks for giving us a thrill again. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. Well, Clark Whitney's out there waiting for us someplace. He's a veteran Cook Inlet and Bristol Bay guy from Soldotna, Alaska, and he and Steve have teamed up. Clark, what do you got for us tonight?
I'm having trouble. Can you see me?
Well, I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Well, it says that I can't start my video because the host has stopped it.
Okay.
There it is. All right. Can you see me now?
Yes.
All right. Well, my good friend Steve Schoonmaker and I got to go up to the head of Catchmack Bay to a place called Bear Cove. Those of you from Homer sure know where that is. And we recorded some videos. And so I sent my video in, and so it's going to play next. I hope you like it. I'll be really looking forward to being able to come back to Astoria when things get all settled down. And anyway, I hope you like this video.
Live from Bear Cove. This song is called Every Summer. Every summer in Alaska State, the salmon come back to spawn. People are waiting for the miracle on the river at the break of dawn. The salmon feed the people, animals, and plants. As swimming up the river they go. Without them we'd go hungry and the river would die. So we're telling everybody we know. Everybody wants the salmon to come back to spawn. People are waiting for the miracle on the river at the break of dawn. wants to dig a pit mine in the watershed we call Bristol Bay. The people do not want the mine because they all know the mine will take the salmon away. Politicians sell their souls, betray their people and state for benefit of foreign corporation. We have to tell them loud and clear, you know we can't wait. Prevent this mine for the salmon's salvation. Everybody wants the salmon to come back to spawn. People are waiting for the miracle on the river at the break of dawn. At Salmon Fest we sing and speak, we tell all our friends that the watershed is worth more than gold. Can't violate this perfect gift, this priceless resource. We won't let our children's birthright be sold. So we'll fight to save our salmon and our wilderness from greedy people who would take it away. We won't let them steal our future with their dirty pit mine. So join me as we tell them today. Everybody wants the salmon to come back to spawn. Salmon to come back to spawn. People are waiting for the miracle on the river at the break of dawn. Oh yeah, people are waiting for the miracle on the river at the break of dawn.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
Great.
All right, I'm glad to share that with you guys. And boy, I just like I said, I just can't wait to get back together with everybody again. If they have Fisher Poets gathering in Astoria in February, I'll be there, and look forward to seeing all of you again. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Clark. Thanks for going to that trouble to make that lovely video. And the guitar sounds great. It's great to hear some music from you. We look forward to hear more of that. So, and thanks for fighting a good fight for everybody there. It's going to be a constant one. But thanks for that song. I believe that that Mo Balstern's with us here next. She's been standing by. She's a Kodiak experienced fisherman. She's been long lining, seining in Kodiak. She's from Portland, Oregon. But she got a little urban edge to her as well. Thank you for coming, Mo. Where are you? You nearby?
I'm here. It's so nice to be here. Thank you. Portland's pretty interesting place to live right now, and it's pretty urban. They laid George Floyd down on the ground. To me, he will wait on everything. His spirit rises all around, and we stand for Black Lives Matter. All the way on everything, though they beat us down, we will not shatter. All the way, let me hear you sing, and we stand for Black Lives Matter. The silent dead, we say each name, though they beat us down, we will not shatter. Let not their lives be lost in vain, and we stand for Black Lives Matter. All the way on everything, though they beat us down, we will not shatter. All the way, let me hear you sing, and we stand for Black Lives Matter. I've been writing a little post every night on Instagram, and this is from day 51 of the pandemic. That the lyrics to that came from Megan. I can't remember her last name, but she works on a tugboat. It was a commission. I just feel like fishermen and workers and people against the mine, it's just people against climate change. I really appreciate what Steve had to say. Also, I had to say I really appreciated hearing Dave cackle the entire way through Gino's performance. That was amazing. Thank you. So this is from day 51. I'm enjoying the spring weather, the swing between sunny and soaking, the cool air, good for my baby peas and lettuces, rain keeping the earth soft for when I get back to landscaping. Took a walk in the slanted evening light and enjoyed a music by bike moment coming up north on 7th as I dropped off copies of the new zine Chasing the Night by my friend Aaron Yankee. The debate about lifting restrictions feels a bit like a big spring storm after sitting all day on anchor while skippers gnaw on permit cards, desperate to get nets in the water. Boats that needed money sometimes went out a little before it was what we called fishable, which sparked a panic in the fleet. Bigger boats with better gear can, of course, fish in worse weather, while smaller boats get their asses kicked or maybe into real trouble. I'm not sure how far this metaphor applies, but my nerve ends sense a similar combination of tension, pent-up energy, and the unknown. Sometimes we'd leave the anchorage to find calm enough weather to get to work, and other times we'd barely make it to a place where we could safely drop the hook again. Technology. Where we could drop the hook again and wait. It could be pretty hairy going, all hands on deck, tying down the net, because the waves soaking the stern threatened to carry it off the boat while the back deck was partially submerged. I remember one winter crab fishing when it was blowing 30, 35 and the seas were building. So our 44-foot boat was slamming into the waves and my 50-year-old crewmate was starting to get more and more angry, muttering, "This ain't worth it. This ain't worth it. Ain't worth it." It would be easier right now if all we had to do was make a weather call. Good people of Earth, I hope you have a good radio signal, a reliable boat to keep you out of danger, a crew you trust, a protected anchorage, and a heavy hook to stick on the rockiest of bottoms. If you don't, I hope you can stay in safely. They want us to get back to work because, as they say, billionaires don't make their money, you do. We do. Good people of Earth, may you have a choice. Good night and safe travels. Thank you.
That was great.
So if you're on Instagram, I write one of those little things every night, and there's usually photos of my cats or George. And I just want to tell you all how much I love you and how much it means to be included in this. I know I'm a risk, and I am living in Portland, and if you think, I would prefer that you write to me and ask me what it's like there, because the newspapers aren't telling you what's happening. And it's we just spent a whole week inside, along with many other people on the West Coast, because of the smoke. So the climate change thing is the thing. And all we have is each other. And I definitely want to say, I wish I could be in Homer and go to the Save You More and get snacks and get a big hug from Katie Bursch and Tommy Bursch and say hi to the dog Oso. And I'm kind of tearing up. So thanks a lot, you guys. You take care.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Well, Mo, thanks for bringing that thoughtful work to us and for knitting so much of our lives into back into fishing and knitting everything together. You weave a terrific quilt out of the stuff you do for us. So glad you're here tonight. Thank you. And I think that Mo, after Mo, I think Pat Dixon's standing by in Olympia, Washington. He's a veteran Cook Inlet gill netter with over 20 seasons logged in up there and published poet. We're glad you're here, Pat. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Mo, that was awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your sentiment and thank you for your words. You're always, you always go straight to the heart of the matter and to our hearts. So we love you too. Yeah, all right. I have a one that I don't think I've ever read at Fisherpoets. It's an older one. And I wrote it for for the guy who actually said the title on the radio one day. It's called Where'd All the Fish Go? For my friend Don. Where'd all the fish go? Anybody know? They were thick enough to walk on just a week ago. We had jumpers in the air as far as we could see, and nets filled with bonus trips to the cannery. Where'd all the fish go? East, west, uphill, down. Up north, there's a bunch of tin boats running around, but there's nothing I can spot. Nowhere to be seen, except the whitecaps on the water and the gulls' lonely scream. The tide's coming in. There should be a show. On the flood, the middle's where they usually go, but there's nothing here. Not like yesterday. Today, the rip is empty. It's like they just flew away. They got to be somewhere, a guy on the CB just said, but hell if I know which way to head. That seems to be the story. It's the same east and west, sitting here, waiting, drinking coffee seems best. A boat down south saw some hits at opening today, and now half the freaking fleet's charging hard his way. You know, maybe that big slug of fish we dream about each fall is finally coming in, and we can get them all. Jumpers 1.5 miles wide and 5 miles long. I know a guy who says he saw him, and he ain't often wrong, but chasing radio fish don't make much sense to me. About all you ever catch is a net full of sea. I don't know what else to do, so I pour another cup and stand in the stern, looking out till I conjure up a jumper in the hook and a splash in the net. My crew likes the action. He's dancing on deck and says a school might show. Could be right, I suppose. Guess I'll stay till there's a reason for the washdown hose. I wonder if they've sounded or maybe swimming up the beach. I could drop a net near the rocks, but I'd need someone to teach me how to scoop them up without tearing the gear. Instead, I'll bounce around in deep water out here where there's no rocks to be found. Damn, I sure hope there's a few more fish around. The few boats that do wait to call it a season might catch that late run. After all, that's the reason we stay, to fill up our nets out here all by ourselves, while the other boats are up on shore, like books on shelves. Wouldn't that be a hoot, to be out here in the fog and load up on late reds, some silvers and dogs, fill up the net, then come in running low, and next year they'll ask, where did you go? But you were by yourself when you nailed them all, so you don't have to tell them. Didn't have to call anyone on the radio as the net and hold got full. You were busy plugging scuppers, sealing the hull, and laughing with your crew on a full fish hold high with the stereo cranked and slapping slimy high fives, while the fish just kept coming on a silver rope that carried you to glory and gave the rest of us hope. Thank you. Got that one. A few classes back there.
That was wonderful.
This is so weird with the audience, but it's good. It's good to see everybody, and it's good to do this. So I'm glad we're here, and I really appreciate being invited. So I've been working since May on a memoir of my 20 years fishing in Cook Inlet, and the title of that is called Waiting to Deliver, and this is the title poem that's in the book. On the good day, when boats return home, low in the water, holds full, nets wrapped around salmon rolled on the reel. After picking half the net and laying it back out while the fish keep hitting, then running to the other end and doing it again all day long. No time for breaks, a sandwich, or even water. Your face, beard, and glasses streaked black by gray, dotted white with scales, back aching, fingers and wrists sore. You find energy reserves, threads of adrenaline buried deep, sustain you until you've made the run home and toss a line to the boat you tie behind. the last of a dozen hanging off the port stern, next to a matching group tied to the starboard side of the tender, taking fish, anchored in the middle of the river. This day of donkey work, this day of absolution, isn't over, won't be for hours. At the back of the queue, you know you'll be here past dinner, past dark, maybe past dawn. You'll eat a baked potato and a red salmon, garnished with lemon, onion, and butter, less than 2 hours than from the time you plucked it alive from the sea. You'll wash it down with a cold beer from the cooler, watch the sunset, and think how this is the best, most complete life you can imagine. Salt air cools as shadows lengthen, and the water changes from blue to black. You trade bunk time with your deckhand and fall asleep before your head hits the pillow. The smack of a boat hook on the bow wakes you both as the next boat in line cuts you all loose to go deliver. And those of you still tethered together like a serpent in the glare of arc lights, work to move up, fight the current, pulled and yanked off course by boats fore and aft, bumping throttles forward, neutral, reverse, trying not to ram the one ahead of you, hoping the one behind you does the same. Your deckhand fends off as you swing too close to the vessels sleeping to starboard, until the lead boat tosses a line around the tender's cleat again, and you all slide back in the current like a sigh. Engine after engine goes silent. Lines creak around the cleats as they stretch taut. Your crew slips into the bunk while you settle back in the skipper's chair, light a smoke, and sip a cold cup of coffee. You're still waiting to deliver. Thanks, everybody.
Well, Pat, thanks. You cast a real spell with your stuff. I could listen to you for a long, long time. Thanks so much. That's really delightful.
Thank you, John.
Well, with Mo, George Wilson is, there they are, a pair of from different cultures, centuries, and George joins us from Scotland. He's actually from Portland now, but you wouldn't know it. And he's a fisherman back there too, fished with his family on his dad's boat and so forth. You should see the pictures. He's the real item. Thanks, George, for joining us too tonight.
Thank you, John. You sound so close. Yeah, I live in Portland now, but I fished in the North Sea and the Northeast Atlantic and for over 20 years, and I've fished up in Kodiak a couple of salmon seasons. I'm going to do a piece called Rockall. We've been inside first with the pandemic, then we had a curfew because of police riots, then we had the fires. I've been thinking a lot about my country, about Scotland and the end of the world and how we got here. I've been thinking about this place called Rockall. I've only been to Rockall once. The Rockall Bank is in the Atlantic. It's 240 miles southwest of the Butt of Lewis. And the Butt of Lewis is the most northerly part of the Isle of Lewis, which is 40 miles off the west coast of Scotland, the Outer Hebrides. So it's 240 miles southwest of that. It's a day's steam in our boat. The D side does 9 knots. There's a 100-fathom edge, which is 40 miles west of the Hebrides. The boats fish the 100-fathom edge or deeper. Then it goes thousands of fathoms deep. And then it rises again to become the Rockall Bank. It's way out there. It's a huge bank of relatively shallow water, which rises up from very deep water. Rockall is the northern edge of it. The fishermen just refer to it as the rock. It's above the water, except sometimes in the winter time when the swells kind of swamp it. But it's a huge lump of rock sticking 60 feet above the surface. I've fished out there but I've only seen it in the distance. We were fishing the deeper waters around the edges of the bank. You can see photographs of it online. It's the last land grab made by the British Empire when in 1972 they lured 2 Marines and an ornithologist and raised the British flag and claimed the valuable fishing and mineral rights for the United Kingdom. But Scotland is the closest landfall. It first appeared on maps 400 or so years ago. The name comes from the Scots Gaelic word Rockabara, which is the name of a mythical island that comes and goes 3 times. Its third appearance, the story goes, heralds the end of the world. In 1904, 600 Northern European immigrants bound for New York on a passenger liner perished when their ship struck the rock. There were about 100 survivors. Rockall is said to have been mistaken for an iceberg, a sailing ship, a whale, and a submarine. An armed merchant cruiser, thinking it was an enemy vessel, warned it to surrender in the First World War before opening fire. Peter Smith, who is the man responsible for the introduction, which led eventually to me marrying Mo, moving to the States, fishing in Alaska, and becoming a fisher poet. Peter Smith used to fish Rockall a lot. He made a lot of money off Rockall. And some of his crew swam and climbed up on the rock, which seemed like a lot of fun, but also stupid and dangerous. Because out there, the ocean never gets calm. There's always a swell. It's hard to get onto the rock. They fished haddocks there and cod. Used to catch huge cod, just enormous cod, and squid in the summertime. That shallow bit where the rock is, there's a place where they got a lot of squid. Usually the bigger boats went out there and they filled up with haddock really quickly. In the heyday of it in the 80s and 90s, they just went back and forth, filling up. We had a paper boy named Neil Wood, a fine loon, as you say, a good boy. I remember sitting watching the TV and him coming and delivering the papers. He graduated Bucky High School in 1992 and went straight to the fishing. Worked for Davy Main on the Aurora. They were fishing Rockall. And the weather, it was force 9. Sustained winds of 48 to 55 knots with gusts considerably more. Boats were fishing. And they were hauling broadside to the weather, and the boat got hit by a wave and Neil was washed over the side. He lost his life and his body was never found. He lost his life at Rockall. This is what I've been thinking about as we've been shut inside from the pandemic and the wildfire smoke and the civil unrest. About an island in the Atlantic that comes and goes, that makes money for some, although we never made any money there. Is the end of the world coming in clouds of wildfire smoke, or in the tear gas, or in a force 9 gale? Thank you. Back to you, John.
Oh, terrific, George. Thanks for that reflection and remembering your buddy and holding fast with us. Thanks for that work. Well, Mary Garvey's standing by. Mary's one of our favorite singers, one of our favorite singers, period. She did fisheries research and support out of Washington State University, and she's the melodic voice of the lower Columbia River from Seaview, Washington, and we love her songs. Mary, are you here to share them with us tonight?
Yes. Do you have time for 2, or should I just do 1?
No, we have time for 2. We don't have to get off here. We have just a few more people to go, and so thanks for your patience. Give us 2.
Well, this is a lot of people are talking about the Copper River situation. This is about Copper River salmon. And the last verse is in my version of Chinook. It's work, hard work, passed from father to the son. Work, hard work, and the day is never done. Sometimes dark and dismal, sometimes downright fun. Going after Copper River salmon in the spring. We're going after salmon in the spring. That repeats, it's guess, good guess, when the salmon are returning. Guess, good guess, how much money we'll be earning. No guess at all how much gas we'll be burning. Going after Copper River salmon in the spring. We're going after sockeye in the spring. It's turn, sharp turn, trying not to hit the logs. Turn, sharp turn, and it's raining cats and dogs. Hard to keep your bearings when you're steering in the fog. Going after Copper River salmon in the spring. We're going after sockeye in the spring. It's wet, damn wet, and it's soaking through your jacket. Wet, damn wet, the engine makes a funny racket. You're not getting younger, how much longer can you hack it? Going after Copper River salmon in the spring. We're going after sockeye in the spring. And it's fish, fresh fish, for the markets of Seattle. Fish, fresh fish, and it's really quite a battle. If we want to get there first, then we really must skedaddle. Going after Copper River salmon in the spring. We're going after sockeye in the spring. It's chuck, skookum, chuck, hi, you potlatch, skookum, chuck. Chuck, skookum, chuck, alki, sagalita muck. Chuck, skookum, chuck, alki, salmon, muck-a-muck. Going after Copper River salmon in the spring. We're going after sockeye in the spring. Hopefully they will be there forever. And then I'll sing one about a terrible tragedy in Pribilofs called The Destination. I think some people knew the people on The Destination. The tune is Barbary Allen. Oh Lord, a boat's gone down. It's called The Destination. Search and rescue gathered round. We watch with trepidation. It might have been a daisy chain. It might have been the weather. It might be what we can't explain. We're all in this together. We ride the ski-doos till we drop upon the cliffs so icy, but crabbing in the Pribilofs, the weather's always dicey. In the Norski Rat Saloon, when they were last here drinking, we talked it over night and noon, what all of us are thinking. We know that it is past the time to call off all the searches, but still we pray for one more day from all the bars and churches. Mother Ocean loves her sons, but she can treat them poorly. She sometimes calls her favorite ones too often and too early. A safe return is our request for all our sons and daughters, O'Grady, Seabold, and the rest who fish upon these waters. And thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us, Mary. Your music's so delightful, and we love to learn your songs and sing along with you. So thanks for coming. Thanks for singing tonight. We've only a couple more left here tonight, so stay with us. And I'm really excited that we chased down Maggie Bursch, originally from Homer, now from Anchorage. She grew up set netting in Bristol Bay, but now she's a skipper on her own boat there and fishes sockeye season in the summertime. Maggie, you still with us? Thanks for staying along. We'd love to hear from you.
Oh, here's my mute. Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, tonight, thank you for having me. Tonight has just been so wonderful to see so many people I love hearing at Fisherpoets, and just friends and poets I haven't heard who tell stories that parallel mine or tell the stories I haven't heard about this industry. So thank you. This has been really special. And no, Osa Dog is at my feet. I would pull her up here to show you, but she's having a snooze. When kind of thinking about reading at this event, a memory came to mind, and it was about when I was 9 or 10 years old. It was a 4 a.m. opener, and I knew it was coming, and I could hear from my little room in the plywood cabin on the shore of the Ugashik River, all the crew getting up, and so I took the wadded up children's long underwear that were still damp and stinky from yesterday's opening and put them on. And I left my room and I went out into the kitchen where the crew was eating instant oatmeal, and both my parents just look at me and they're like, no, you're too young. You're not going out. It's wavy. It's dark. Go back to bed. And I was crushed and I was so frustrated. And I didn't understand. And thinking back, I think they were protecting me from the waves and from the wind, but they were protecting me from something else. And this poem's kind of about that. And yeah, here it goes. They call them net mirrors. The demons took me when I was 12 and they made my dreams unwakeable. I would beg them, but the salmon kept swimming into my room, my sister sleeping soundly with a flounder under head. Panicked in my sinking bed, I searched for steering wheel and throttle in the sheets, swearing and groping until the water rose, until I'd wake her and she'd wake me and the waves dropped back to clothing on the floor. Later, I learned to wake myself with water, wading through the waves to the kitchen, washing my face at the sink until the currents subsided and the piles of net turned back into plywood under my legs. I still sleep with sockeye in my sheets and jump out of bed telling everyone to get up now. The net is out and munched. The waves are big and the water's shallow and I can't run this fucking boat alone. And then I wake and everyone is sleeping. And I am standing wide-eyed and naked in the cabin in my sweat. And I remember then the eyes of the fisherman as he spits black into his beer can and laughs at my demons. You can take them, he says. Then he looks at me a little too long. So that story about damp long underwear and 4 a.m. opener was from, I'm just realizing, 18 years ago. So I really love that poem, Becoming a Fisherman. I've been becoming a fisherman for a long time now. And it's meant a lot of different things to me over the years, whether it's about being tough or being proud or trying to prove myself. But most recently, fishing has been a lot about family. And that's kind of what it means to me these days. This next poem is called Toughness. You should see my mother's hands. Ever since I was a child, I would run my fingers across them. Each knuckle and callus I'd open and close. I remember how she told me that in high school, she would sit on the school bus looking at her hands, hoping they looked tough. I longed for hands like hers. She says she got her first fishing job off a strong handshake. Says she got the scar on her finger from falling down a fence when she was 6. Says her fingernails are just like her father's. Had to use scissors to trim them. Too tough to clip. The same hands that muscled chains and Bruce anchors over aluminum gunnels put tight braids in my hair, rubbed my back until I slept. When they first bought the boat, she says they didn't have rubber gloves, just cotton, and the web would get under your fingernails until it bled. She says you have to use lard, not butter, in a pie, And her hands are so big she can lift the dough into ceramic without it cracking, and then turn the trim into flowers with just a pinch. Hands like hers break rules we didn't know we held in our hearts. They roll stereotypes thin. They haul on the thick lines of disbelief and braid in new concepts of toughness. Thank you for having me here tonight. This has been a really special experience and just really grateful to be a part of it. Thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful, Maggie. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for reading those. A couple of our favorites. Nice to hear them from you tonight. Well, I miss Dave Densmore. I hope you're around, Dave. I was scooting down my list in a little bit of a hurry, and Dave Densmore is the real deal. He's grew up in the Aleutians, kind of settled in Astoria for a long time here. He's fished the west coast of the Bering Sea, and that was him as cackling in the background as Gino read his stuff. Dave, you still with us? We'll give you another chance to come in if following Katrina, if you're finding it hard to find us just now. All right. Well,
How about now?
yeah, attaboy. There you are.
Good. All right. Yeah. There's something else on the screen here now.
Maybe you gotta hit that blue.
Says to start my video. Well, I don't have a video, so.
That's what I did.
Anyway,
Come on.
do you hear me, John?
Roger, yeah, we hear you loud and clear, Dave.
Okay, there we are. All right. Well, like John said, I fished all my life. I started when I was, first time I saw the ocean, I knew that was where I belonged. And I was pretty small. I was picking a set net out of my dad's 20-foot dory when I was 7 out by Folds Pass, a little village called Icatan. It's long gone now. I delivered the very first load of tanner crabs as processed in Dutch Harbor, and I fished the last king crab season in Kodiak, and there's been a lot of fish across the deck in between, but I always came back to salmon. I started with salmon, and I've got a salmon trawler down here, and I got a seiner in Kodiak, and I fished everything and saw some of the rogue waves higher than I could see over top of, but I always came back to salmon. That's I think they're the most beautiful fish in the ocean. So this is my love song. The salmon is called Circle of Fish, or Circle of Life, I'm sorry. The circle of life goes round as she fights her way upstream, giving her life to give life, her one sustaining dream. The eggs drop, sperm comes to bring the magic of life. Snow flies, winter passes in spring, life renewal running rife. The fingerling starts downstream, destination unsure but true. Birds of prey, rocks, turbulence, dangers ahead, so much more. Finally, all the while gaining, morphing, she reaches a deep nurturing sea, and the arc of the circle continues as it was always meant to be. Far offshore she runs, feeding, growing, gaining strength, till her biological clock tells her to turn around at length. So homeward calls and she starts that long trek back home, the circle of life to compete, as in a living poem. Through the ocean she runs, dodging predators, hooks and net, the urge to return home, as strong as it can get. Oh, she leaps for sheer joy, flashing silver in the sun. Somehow she just knows the closing of the circle has begun. The home stream unerringly found after so many long and arduous miles, and upstream she struggles against the currents, swift and wild. The circle of life closes. Again, the cycle goes around. Nest built, sperm flows, as her eggs rain softly down. That's my love song to salmon.
All right, man. Good going, Jake.
Oh, this last one, I grew up out in the Aleutians, and this is for the old elders are long gone now, but they always had the patience to tell a hungry kid a story. Give me a little smoked salmon or eucla, Red Whaler, John the Snailer, Rick Foster. So many are special men in my life when I was a kid. It's also for the young guys and gals. They're trying to find their heritage, trying to find their way back to the day. It's called Mask Fire. I was to a mask fire a couple years ago in Kodiak on a little spit, a little island called Sometimes Island, because when the tide goes out, it's not an island. But it was beautiful. It was sacred, and it touched me to the heart, to the soul. So I wrote this poem about it. I just wrote this poem. Puchki, wood smoke and nooshniks was the welcoming smell of my native home. Smoked salmon and eucla was what I cut my teeth upon. Splashing of salmon out in the bay, quiet murmur of elders sitting in the sun. Their lives lived sweet and free, softly inning, the same as they'd begun. Seaworthy bidarkas resting on the beach, snug barappas lined the shore. How could we ever envision someday we'd crave so much more? Because now so-called modern times bring so much stuff we just must have. But I've grown old and dream of older ways, soothe my soul like shaman salve. Yeah, for a time I too was blinded by distractions of this modern camp. But the spirit of tradition burns strongly on like moss in a seal oil lamp. We are but travelers stopping here for a time. And how we act and what we do will determine if the path ahead will be rough or smooth. I wonder if they'll burn a mask for me. Will I be able to look back and see? With my deep love and respect for tradition, will my spirit then be set totally free? And now a mask is burning for me, and I feel the coming strength of a youthful boy. So build a mask, fire high and dance. Dance long and hard with joy. As I see the flames take the mask, I feel my strength become complete. So I turn quietly to the path ahead and leave behind my people and the sound of dancing feet. Thank you very much for having me.
Good going, Dave.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, Dave, terrific. Thanks for bringing that experience, all those long hours out there, all that weather, putting them in a couple of poems and bringing them to us. We appreciate your long wisdom and your craftsmanship and your poetry. Thanks. Well, thanks everybody for staying with us so long. We've got one more to go, and it's just one of the delights of this evening that we're able to keep John Campbell up late in Rhode Island to enjoy the show, and wake Katrina Porteous up early in England to join the show as well. We thought we might let her sleep in a little bit, but she's been here the whole time waiting patiently. So she comes to us from tomorrow morning in England. So Katrina, thanks for joining us.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for having me. And hi, everyone. It's such a privilege to be here from the Northumberland coast in the northeast of England. What I love about fishing is well, so much, but the sense of community is high up there. And the Fisherpoets are just the most wonderful community. I'll read some very short ones. This is a poem about inshore fishing a sustainable tradition. Yeah, I'll just read it. We've always lived on the edge, boy, small boats, lines and nets. We've always fished as the old men fished, and the old men showed the sea respect, for they'd wait for the fish in the season, shooting a dozen and two. I'll tell you, there's just one skipper out there, and that's not you. When a dozen and two was your limit, your 12 long lines might fetch 100 stone. Now 100 lines won't land you 10, and there's the catch. Technology's killed the fishing. Sea never gets no rest. Now politics gonna finish the job with a law like a millstone round our necks, and it's duck, dodge, bend like a reed, small boats, little gear. If we was to land every fish we caught, they'd still be there another year. One of the important parts of the fishing on the Northumberland coast has always been the salmon fishing. It's been a real sort of center of the fishing year. But in the last 2 years, last year and this year, salmon fishing's finally been banned on this coast. So here's a really short poem about that. It's a really sad situation. How I doon the harbour, gan off afore the dawn. Plenty lang a winter to lay a bed our morn. Plenty lang a winter, nane salmon i the bay, and lang enough for sleep, lad, when your living's rived away. When your living's rived away, lad, and the big man greeds your keep. Plenty lang a winter, lang enough for sleep. And I'm just going to finish with one. This is in Northumbrian dialect. That last one was dialect as well, but this one, we talk about sustainability, and that's really important to every fisherman I've ever met. And part of that sustainability is not just our relation to nature, but it's our relation to one another through nature. And the fishing culture, the language of fishing, I think is a big part of that. So this poem to finish is in Northumbrian dialect and describes the birds that you see when you're out at sea and some of the things that come up in the lobster pots. Don't worry if you don't understand every word. Gormers and solens, taries and toodlums, sea mice, wergies, scoots and tearums, peasets, pilots, little pickies, cuddy ducks and tommy noddies, wittery wagtails, willamints and mullymacks that cockle and spit, and it's nae bother at all. Ah, the tea you day is clash 'em out, forget the names, will never be wanting them things again. Hoy the rubbish away, the bairns blether, the fishermen's clatter, come with the wind and gone with the wetter. The tuck, the butt, the bienny, the brat, the blackjack, the poodler, the muckle sea cat, the piker, the skeldy, the finner, the plasher, the paddle hoosh and the feather lasher. And beasties with names that you'd never believe that craw through the weirs and get fast to the creeves. Pipers with long legs like frogs, urchins with 1,000 progs, suckers and bookies, doggers and pillins, tiered legs, kale fruins, musk shells, papstones, pistols and nancies and sixpenny men. But we'll never be wanting them things again, for it's nae slaver at all. To hoy the rubbish away, our shigans, the fruins and the swatters, come with the wind and gone with the wetter. We'll no be wanting them no. Hey, Alaska World Arts Festival, thank you so much for having us and for having me here. It's just been great. Thank you all. Thank you, John. Thank you, Fisherpoets. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Wow. What a great. Go, John.
Tarina, what a thrill that you were able to join us. It's so great to hear from you again. It's been too long, but we're just charmed by your stuff. You've left us with the bar quite high. So thanks for that encouragement and the lovely music of your poetry.
Thank you.
Well, we're at the end of our list. My buddy Jay just got bounced off his internet connection someplace and he's gone to bed, he tells me. So I'm sorry, I'm not gonna tell him what fun he missed. But thank you all for coming. It's just been a delight, more than I could imagine. And thank you, Sally and Kathy and Linda for hosting us here in the Alaska World Arts Festival, for inviting Fisherpoets. We look forward to seeing you one way or the other more this year as we wait for the tide to change. So thanks so much, and I guess good night, huh?
Well, I have a couple words to say just briefly, and that is what a wonderful and diverse group of people. I think we could go on for about maybe 12 hours if we didn't have something else coming up. And it was not a moment that wasn't entertaining and lovely. I know we have other storytellers that we're watching tonight and other writers and performers. And I see New Zealand there, Roger and Deidre. Hi. Yeah.
Hey, Roger.
It's been wonderful. We've got East and West. I want to say, yeah. Hi, guys. Oh my gosh, you're beautiful.
It's been just so great to listen to the Fisherpoets again. Last year when we were there, we just loved every moment of it. And we've been watching you all, and so many of you we recognize. It's just so great. And thanks very much for your stories. We are there with our hearts and listening to everything you're doing. And congratulations, Sally, on putting the show together. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm just going to suggest you go to your gallery view in your upper right now. We'll leave you on for another 5 minutes or so if you guys want to chat at all. And then we're going to have to lock you out so we can go. We have an acoustic Australian young, wildly lovely Australian.
Mary, she's doing the up close thing.
Oh, what's that? Oh, anyway, if you guys stick around in the next hour, we have another show, and the link is on Facebook.
Hi,
Osa! I'm going to put the link in the chat. It's just going to take me a minute to get it. But I'll be back with you in a minute. Visit if you like.
And as you're visiting, this is your techie. If you want to save the chat and some of the comments that were made to you poets, go into chat and the 3 little dots on the lower right